I see you sitting there completely drained, wondering how much longer you can keep pretending that everything is going to be okay. You are so deeply tired, my child. It is not merely the kind of physical fatigue that a long night of sleep can cure. It is a profound, aching, soul-deep exhaustion that has settled quietly into your very bones. I watch you wake up in the morning, and before your feet even have the chance to touch the cold floor, the familiar, suffocating weight of anxiety drops right back onto your chest. You lie there for just a moment, staring at the ceiling, trying to summon the strength to face another day. You try to take a deep breath, but your lungs feel completely restricted by the relentless worry of what the day might bring, of the massive problems that remain stubbornly unsolved, and of the fierce storm that continues to rage around your life. I feel the heaviness of your spirit. I know that waking up does not feel like a fresh start anymore. It simply feels like returning to a battlefield where you have been fighting for far too long. You have been trying so incredibly hard to keep everything together. I know the immense agonizing effort it takes for you to put on that brave face before you step out of your front door and face the world. I watch as you carefully construct a smile, forcing your voice to sound cheerful, light, and perfectly steady when you speak to your family, your friends, and your coworkers. You listen to their problems. You offer them encouragement, and you nod along, as if your own heart is not currently breaking into 1,000 tiny pieces. You are trying so desperately to be the strong one, the reliable one, the one who never wavers, ensuring that absolutely no one sees the dangerous cracks forming in your own foundation. You have convinced yourself that if you just keep moving, if you just keep working, if you just keep pretending that the heavy burdens on your shoulders are light, then somehow the pain will simply vanish. But I see the quiet desperation hidden behind your smile. I see the moments when your eyes glaze over in the middle of a crowded room because your mind has suddenly been violently pulled back into the swirling vortex of your deepest fears. I see you when you are finally alone. I am with you in those quiet, desperate moments when the front door is securely locked, the lights are turned off, and the heavy, silent curtain of your private sanctuary falls around you. That is when the brave face finally melts away, and the terrifying reality of your situation washes over you in the dark. You think you are completely alone when your hands begin to tremble. You think no one is watching when you sit in your parked car for 10 extra minutes, gripping the steering wheel, just trying to gather the emotional energy to walk inside your home. You think you are entirely unseen when you lock yourself in the bathroom, turn on the water to hide the sound, and let out a breathless, exhausted sob. But I am right there in the room with you. I have never left your side. I have been there for every single tear you have cried in the shadows. You thought you were weeping in secret, burying your face in your pillow, so the world would not hear the muffled cries of a heart that feels completely crushed under the weight of an impossible reality. But I heard every single one. I have intimately counted every tear that has ever fallen from your weary eyes. They are not meaningless drops of water falling to the ground. They are sacred prayers you simply did not have the vocal strength to speak. When your mind is frantically racing and your spirit is far too broken to form a coherent sentence, your tears speak directly to my heart, and I understand exactly what they mean. You are so exhausted from the constant agonizing waiting. You have prayed, you have pleaded, and you have begged for a breakthrough. You have stood on my promises, but as the days have turned into long weeks, and the weeks have stretched into grueling months, a very dark, bitter whisper has tried to take root in your mind. You have started to wonder if I have somehow forgotten you. In the silence of the waiting season, the enemy has tried to convince you that I have turned my back, that your prayers are merely bouncing off the ceiling and disappearing into a cold, empty void. You look around and see others receiving their blessings, walking joyfully into their answered prayers. And the human part of your heart cannot help but ask, what about me? Have you looked away from my pain? Have I done something to disqualify myself from your grace? Hear me clearly, right now, my beloved child. I have never not, for one fraction of a second, looked away from your life. Your pain is absolutely not invisible to me, and this difficult season of waiting is not a sign of my absence, nor is it a punishment for your past. I am intimately aware of the exact details of the storm that is battering your life. I know the fear of the unpaid bills, the sting of the broken relationships, the dread of the uncertain medical reports, and the profound, aching loneliness that makes you feel entirely isolated from the rest of humanity. I know exactly how much it hurts to feel like you are desperately treading water in the middle of a violent ocean, trying to keep your head above the waves, while your arms grow weaker and weaker by the minute. You are fighting battles you were never designed to fight alone. I did not create you to carry the crushing weight of the world on your fragile shoulders. I did not wire your mind to constantly process worst-case scenarios, nor did I design your heart to endure a relentless barrage of anxiety without a safe harbor to dock in. You have been acting like a wounded soldier, abandoned on the front lines, swinging your sword wildly at the wind, utterly exhausted from the monumental effort of trying to save and protect yourself. But I am the commander of heaven's armies, and I am standing right beside you, shielding you from blows you cannot even see before I reach out my powerful hand to change the external circumstances of your life, before I calm the physical storm that is raging outside your windows. I want to gently place my hands upon your weary, battered heart. The miracle you have been so desperately praying for is indeed coming. But if I simply changed your situation right now, while your soul remains fractured, terrified, and exhausted, you would only find something else to fear tomorrow. You would still carry the trauma of the storm inside you. I love you far too much to merely change your environment without first healing your spirit. I want to breathe entirely new life into your weary lungs. I want to take the tightly wound knots of panic in your stomach and gently untangle them with my unending grace. Listen to me very closely, because the beautiful journey to your long-awaited breakthrough starts right here in this exact moment. It does not begin with you working harder, thinking faster, striving more, or finally figuring out the perfect human solution to your massive problem. It begins with the profound, quiet, and deeply comforting realization that you are fully seen, entirely loved, and perfectly understood by the Creator of the universe. I see you. I love you. I understand the silent agony you have been enduring. The time has come to stop running on this endless, exhausting treadmill of worry and frantic striving. The time has come to recognize that the heavy yoke you have strapped to your own shoulders is slowly crushing the vibrant life I intended for you to live. I am inviting you to step off the battlefield of your own mind. Prepare your tired spirit for a completely different way of living, a gentle path that will require you to look down at your bruised, tightly clenched hands and finally prepare to release the heavy, agonizing illusion that you must control the uncontrollable winds of this storm. You have spent so much of your life believing that if you simply think hard enough, plan carefully enough, and anticipate every possible danger, you can somehow keep your world from falling apart. I have watched you lie awake in the middle of the night, staring into the darkness, while your mind races through an endless, exhausting maze of scenarios. You try to calculate every possible outcome. You replay past conversations, searching for the exact moment things went wrong. And then you swiftly pivot to the future, desperately trying to predict what will happen tomorrow, next week, or next year. You have convinced yourself that anxiety is a form of preparation. You believe that by obsessively turning these problems over and over in your mind, you are actively protecting yourself and the people you love. You spend your evenings endlessly searching for a single piece of news or a sudden revelation that will finally grant you a sense of absolute certainty. But my child, this constant, frantic analyzing is not shielding you from the storm. It is only dragging you deeper into its violent, chaotic waters. The agonizing anxiety you feel right now, the persistent tightness in your chest, the shallow, rapid breaths, the sudden, overwhelming spikes of panic, does not actually come from the situation itself. It comes directly from the crushing, impossible burden of trying to control an outcome that belongs entirely to me. Think about the countless hours you have spent trying to force open doors that I have intentionally, lovingly closed. I have seen the profound frustration etched across your face when your meticulous plans fall through, when the answer to a desperate prayer is a resounding no, or when the timing simply does not make any sense to your limited human understanding. You push and you pull, exhausting your spirit, trying to manufacture a breakthrough by your own sheer willpower. You are frantically searching for solutions to problems you cannot solve, trying to fix broken situations that are entirely out of your physical reach. In doing so, your beautiful mind has become a dark, chaotic battlefield. It is overrun with worst-case scenarios, terrifying what-ifs, and devastating hypothetical failures. This mental warfare is quietly draining you of the simple, quiet joy and the lightness of spirit I intended for your daily life. You were not created to carry the immense, terrifying weight of tomorrow. When you try to bear the massive burden of the future, you are stepping far out of the grace I have provided for you to survive today. You are attempting to do my job, and it is slowly, painfully breaking you down. I do not tell you this to condemn you. I tell you this because my heart aches deeply to see you so incredibly weary. I am asking you right now, in this very quiet moment, to pause. Stop running. Stop planning. Just sit perfectly still for a moment and look down at your own hands. I want you to look at them closely and honestly. In the spiritual realm, your fists are clenched so tightly around your worries, your plans, and your fears that your knuckles are entirely white. You are holding on to your desired outcome with such a desperate, rigid grip that your hands are severely bruised and aching. You are terrified that if you relax your grip, even for a single fleeting second, everything you hold dear will shatter into a million irreparable pieces. You believe that your tight, anxious hold is the only thing keeping your life intact and preventing total disaster. But my beloved child, holding on so tightly is exactly what is causing your profound spiritual pain. By clutching your fears and your meticulously crafted plans to your chest, you are leaving absolutely no room for my peace to enter your life. Your hands are far too full of your own anxiety to receive the divine comfort I am trying to hand you. Holding on to control does not diminish your fear. It actually magnifies it. It creates a thick, impenetrable barrier between your exhausted, desperate heart and my limitless healing grace. We must walk through this emotional and spiritual process of letting go together, step by careful step. I know how utterly terrifying surrender feels to a heart that has been deeply wounded and disappointed in the past. The world has relentlessly taught you that surrender means defeat. The world has told you that if you do not fight aggressively for yourself, if you do not control every possible variable in your environment, you will be taken advantage of, left behind, or completely destroyed. You have learned to rely solely on your own fading strength because people have failed you. Systems have broken down, and promises have been shattered. But I am not a person who will fail you. I am your creator, your provider, and your fiercest, most loyal protector. When I ask you to surrender your circumstances to me, I am not asking you to wave a white flag of defeat to the enemy or to give up on your dreams. Surrender in my eternal kingdom is never a sign of weakness. It is the absolute highest, most courageous act of faith you can possibly demonstrate. It is the profound, beautiful, and radical choice to declare that my character is more trustworthy than your own human understanding. It is the defining moment when you finally admit that your arms are simply too short to box with the storm, but your Father effortlessly commands the wind and the waves. I watch the physical tension locked in your jaw, the tight knots forming in your shoulders, and the way you instinctively hold your breath when a new message arrives or a phone rings. Your physical body is manifesting the severe spiritual exhaustion of acting as your own savior. Letting go is a deliberate, conscious unclenching of your spirit. Imagine what it would feel like to slowly, gently open those bruised hands. It takes immense, staggering bravery to uncurl your fingers one by one and release the fragile, broken fragments of your life back into my careful custody. When you finally let go, you might feel a temporary rush of vulnerability, a sudden sharp spike of fear that your entire world will immediately collapse into ruin. That is a completely normal human reaction to stepping out onto the water. But I promise you, the moment you open your hands, your life does not fall to the ground. It falls directly, securely, and permanently into my palms. My hands are infinitely larger, vastly stronger, and far more capable than yours could ever be. They are the very same hands that effortlessly shaped the towering mountains, poured out the depths of the oceans, and hung the burning stars in the vast, endless expanse of the night sky. Do you truly believe those magnificent hands cannot hold the fragile, intricate pieces of your specific personal situation? By bravely releasing your desperate white-knuckled grip on the steering wheel of your life, you finally step out of my way. You stop trying to orchestrate the universe. You create the vital, absolutely necessary spiritual space for my hands to begin working miracles on your behalf. I have been quietly, patiently waiting for you to step back. I have not waited because I am incapable of intervening while you are striving, but because I deeply want you to experience the breathtaking healing relief of being entirely carried by your Father. I want to lift the massive, crushing burden of needing to know how and when right off your aching shoulders, forever. You do not need to figure out how the overwhelming bills will miraculously be paid. You do not need to calculate exactly how the fractured relationship will be beautifully mended. You do not need to spend another sleepless night researching how the impossible medical report will be resolved. You do not need to map out the next 10 steps of your long journey through the wilderness. You only need to take the one small, faithful, obedient step that I have placed directly in front of you today. The immense pressure to have all the answers is a cruel illusion created by a world that simply does not understand my sovereign, unmatched power. Let go of the heavy, suffocating expectation that you must be the brilliant architect of your own rescue. You are not the architect, my child. You are my deeply cherished, meticulously designed creation. It is perfectly okay to admit that you do not know what to do next. It is incredibly freeing to look up at me with tear-filled, exhausted eyes and simply say, I have absolutely no idea how this is going to work out. That raw, vulnerable honesty is the very rich soil where true, unshakable faith is finally planted and allowed to grow. You do not have to have all the answers right now, my child. You only need to trust the one who does. When you finally decide to trust me with the answers, you must also learn to trust me with the timing. I know how deeply you despise this waiting season, my child. I watch you mark the days on the calendar, watching the weeks and months stretch on, feeling a profound, sinking disappointment every time the sun sets without a resolution. To your weary mind, this long pause feels like a harsh, unbearable punishment. It feels as though you are standing in an empty, echoing hallway, knocking on a door that simply refuses to open, while everyone else around you is easily walking into their promised lands. You look at your lingering struggles, and you secretly wonder if I am withholding my goodness from you, perhaps to teach you some painful lesson. You wonder if your faith simply has not been strong enough, or if you made a mistake somewhere along the way that disqualified you from my grace. But I want to wash away those agonizing lies with the absolute truth of my love. This waiting season is not a punishment. It is not an exile, and it is certainly not a sign of my rejection. It is, in fact, a deeply sacred preparation. You have asked me for a massive breakthrough, and I want you to know with absolute certainty that I have heard your prayers. I have caught every single petition you have whispered into the dark. But if I were to suddenly hand you the magnitude of the miracle you have asked for in this exact moment, it would crush you. You are currently operating out of sheer exhaustion and deep-seated fear. Your spiritual muscles are incredibly fatigued from trying to control everything on your own. If I answered your prayer today, you would immediately apply your frantic, anxious energy to the new blessing. You would spend all your time terrified of losing it constantly, trying to manage it in your own fading human strength. The very thing I intended to be a beautiful gift would quickly morph into a heavy, unmanageable burden. You would be so consumed with protecting the blessing that you would forget to enjoy it, and you would inevitably lose sight of the one who gave it to you. I see the cracks in your foundation that you are desperately trying to hide, and I know that adding the weight of an answered prayer to a crumbling foundation will only lead to a devastating collapse. Therefore, this current delay you are experiencing is not a denial of your request. It is a loving, impenetrable protective shield. I am using this very struggle, this exact season of uncomfortable waiting, to build something incredibly powerful inside of you. I am developing a deep, unshakable spiritual endurance that cannot be formed on the mountaintops of immediate success. When everything comes quickly and easily, faith remains fragile and untested. It snaps at the first sign of a strong wind. But down here in the valley, in the quiet, stretching days of the unknown, I am establishing a resilience within your heart that will sustain you for the rest of your life. I am stretching your capacity to trust me when you cannot trace my hand. I am growing a deeply rooted faith that will permanently anchor you. I am ensuring that when the next storm inevitably comes, because storms will always come in this fallen world, you will not panic. You will not crumble. You will stand firm, completely unshaken, because your roots will have grown so deep into my living water during this very season of waiting. You will have a testimony born from the fire, a strength forged in the crucible of patience. Human nature demands immediate gratification. Your world is entirely obsessed with speed, teaching you from a young age that faster is always better, and that waiting is a sign of failure. You live in a society that rushes frantically through the process just to get to the prize, often destroying the profound beauty of the journey along the way. But my kingdom does not operate on human time. I make all things beautiful in my perfect time, precisely because I care far more about the eternal condition of your soul than the temporary speed of your comfort. When I form a diamond in the earth, it requires immense sustained pressure and a great deal of time in the absolute dark. When I grow a mighty oak tree, it spends years developing a massive unseen root system in the hidden soil before it ever stretches its strong branches toward the sky. I am treating you with that exact same level of profound care and patience. I am taking my time with you because you are far too precious to me to be rushed. I know you look at your current circumstances and see nothing but an empty void. You look around and see a lack of movement, a lack of progress, and an agonizing lack of answers. But the waiting room of heaven is never empty, and it is never stagnant. I want you to shift your earthly perspective and begin to see this pause, not as a barren desert, but as a vibrant, busy workshop. Just because your physical eyes cannot see the progress does not mean I am sitting idle on my throne. Behind the thick curtain of what your human senses can perceive, I am actively moving. I am fighting immense spiritual battles on your behalf that you will never even have to know about. I am clearing hidden obstacles out of your future path that would have completely derailed your destiny. I am aligning the hearts of other people, gently adjusting circumstances, and meticulously setting the stage, so that when your miracle finally arrives, it has the absolute perfect environment in which to thrive. Think of a beautiful masterpiece being painted. The master artist does not throw all the colors onto the canvas at once in a frantic rush. They carefully, thoughtfully layer the paint, allowing certain sections to completely dry before adding the next intricate detail. If the artist were to rush, the colors would bleed together into a chaotic, unrecognizable mess. You are my most cherished masterpiece, my child. I am carefully, deliberately painting the beautiful story of your life. Every delay, every closed door, and every quiet, lonely week is a necessary layer of color. I am refining your character, gently, scraping away the pride, the self-reliance, and the deeply ingrained fears that have held you captive for so long. I am emptying you of your own striving, so that you have the capacity to be entirely filled with my grace. This beautiful transformative process requires time, and it requires your willing surrender to the steady pace of my brushstrokes. When you truly begin to understand this, when the profound reality that I am working everything together for your ultimate good finally sinks into the deepest, most exhausted parts of your weary soul, something incredibly beautiful will happen to you. Your heavy, agonizing frustration will slowly begin to evaporate like mist in the morning sun. The bitter resentment you have felt toward this season of waiting will soften into a profound, peaceful trust. In its place, a quiet, hopeful anticipation will begin to rise in your chest. You will wake up in the morning, not with a heavy feeling of dread about another long day of unanswered prayers, but with a gentle, childlike curiosity about what I am building in the unseen realm. You will start to realize that I love you far too much to rush this delicate process. You will finally understand that the longer and more difficult the wait, the more magnificent and undeniable the revelation of my glory will be in your life. Your greatest blessings are being carefully, intentionally woven together right now, even as you listen to these words. Every single thread of disappointment you have endured is being caught by my careful hands and woven into a breathtaking tapestry of extraordinary redemption. I am not wasting a single tear. You have cried a single sleepless night. You have suffered or a single moment of your silent pain. All of it is being masterfully repurposed to strengthen your spirit and to perfectly prepare you for the profound weight of the joy that is coming. The miracle is already in motion, carefully protected within the boundaries of my perfect timing. But to survive the remainder of this sacred preparation season without losing your hope, you must drastically change what you are listening to. You must stop allowing the loud, chaotic panic of your current circumstances to drown out the quiet reassurance of my loving presence. You are standing in the middle of a roaring storm, and the terrifying noise of the howling wind and the crashing waves is deafening. Yet even in the very center of that dark, terrifying chaos, I am speaking to you. You just have to learn how to tune your heart to hear my whisper. You have been looking for me in the dramatic rescues, waiting for the earthquake, the fire, or the roaring wind to suddenly sweep through and instantly change your life. When you are drowning in a sea of overwhelming anxiety, it is entirely natural to cry out for a massive cinematic display of divine intervention. You want the sky to split open. You want a booming voice to shatter the heavens, instantly silencing every enemy and dissolving every obstacle standing in your path. You have been waiting for the burning bush, the parted sea, the undeniable spectacle that completely eradicates your fear in a single blazing moment. But I want you to understand something deeply profound about my nature, my child. While I certainly possess the power to shake the foundations of the earth, I am speaking to you right now in a gentle, quiet whisper. I do not need to shout over the storm to prove my sovereignty. I whisper because I am not standing far away from you, watching you struggle from a distance. You do not have to shout at someone who is sitting right beside you. I speak in a whisper because it requires you to stop running to lean in and to draw intimately close to my chest. In this very moment, I want to teach you how to tune your spiritual ears to hear my voice of grace amidst the chaotic noise of your daily struggles. I know how incredibly loud your world is right now. When the violent winds of financial hardship begin to howl, when the deep aching pain of family conflict echoes through the rooms of your home, or when the suffocating fog of overwhelming uncertainty surrounds your every step, the noise can be completely deafening. Every time you open your mail, answer your phone, or simply look at the news, the world is practically screaming at you. It tells you to panic. It demands that you rush, telling you that time is running out, and you must frantically scramble to protect yourself before everything collapses. The world operates on a terrifying frequency of fear, constantly demanding that you expect the worst possible outcome. This relentless noise creates a physical reaction within you. I see how your shoulders instinctively rise toward your ears, how your stomach ties itself into anxious knots, and how your breathing becomes shallow and hurried as you try to anticipate the next disaster. The enemy uses this chaotic noise to his advantage. He thrives in the loud, confusing static of your panic. He uses the deafening roar of your circumstances to whisper his most insidious lies into your mind. He tells you that your situation is entirely hopeless. He suggests that I have finally abandoned you, that your past mistakes have permanently disqualified you from my grace, and that this current storm is the one that will finally pull you under the waves for good. But those are lies, entirely devoid of truth. My voice cuts through the panic with an entirely different message. To hear my voice, you must learn the sacred art of silencing those lies. You must intentionally tune your spiritual ears away from the frantic frequency of the world's panic and onto the steady frequency of heaven's peace. Think of a massive, intricate orchestra warming up before a performance. It sounds like absolute chaos, horns blaring strings, screeching drums, pounding in a completely uncoordinated, overwhelming mess. But if you close your eyes, take a breath, and focus your mind, you can tune your ear to hear the single clear note of a solitary violin playing beautifully in the center of the stage. Your life right now feels like that chaotic orchestra, but I am that clear, steady note. You must actively choose to listen for me when a thought brings confusion, terror, or a desperate sense of isolation. You can be absolutely certain it is not from me. My voice always brings clarity. My voice always brings deep, sustaining comfort. Even when I am correcting your path or gently shifting your direction, my words are saturated in profound, unshakable love. I am calling you away from the chaotic noise of the world and inviting you into a private, sacred space of communion with me. You do not need to physically flee your home, pack your bags, or travel to a distant mountaintop to find this sanctuary. This sacred space is cultivated right within the center of your own mind and heart, even while the storm rages violently outside your window. I am asking you to intentionally carve out moments today to sit completely still in my presence. Close your eyes. Take a deep, slow breath. Release the tension in your jaw and let your shoulders drop. Tell your racing thoughts that they must bow to the gentle authority of your Creator. As you sit in this stillness, allow my words of comfort to gently wash over your anxious mind. Let me remind you of who I am, and more importantly, of who you are to me. You are not a forgotten orphan left to navigate this brutal storm alone. You are my deeply cherished child, held securely in the palm of my hand. I want you to experience the profound healing relief of simply breathing in my presence without asking for anything to be fixed yet. Do not pray out of panic. Simply sit with me in love. When you finally stop fighting the noise and allow yourself to sink into the quiet sanctuary of my presence, something miraculous begins to happen within you. You will begin to feel a heavy, unmovable anchor dropping into the deepest, most protected parts of your soul. The surface of the ocean above you may still be violent. The massive waves of financial stress, physical illness, or relationship tension may still be crashing hard against the bow of your little boat. The wind may still be howling through the sails, threatening to tear everything apart. But deep beneath the chaotic surface, down in the hidden depths of the water, where the anchor finally catches the solid rock of my truth, there is absolute unbroken stillness. The anchor holds. It does not drag. It does not slip, and it will never break. You are securely tethered to the Creator of the universe, and no storm on earth has the power to uproot what I have firmly established. This is the crucial defining moment of your spiritual journey. This is where the profound transformation begins, in your heart. As the anchor of my grace takes firm hold of your spirit, your perspective naturally shifts. You finally stop staring completely paralyzed at the terrifying size of your problems. You stop measuring the giant that is standing angrily in front of you, and you finally start looking up at the infinite, unmatched, incomprehensible power of your God. You realize that the storm that currently threatens to drown you is merely a drop of water in the palm of my hand. You realize that the impossible mountain blocking your path is nothing but a single grain of sand to the one who spoke the universe into existence. When you truly grasp the sheer magnitude of my power, the things you have been desperately trying to carry will suddenly feel different. You will recognize that because I am so infinitely vast and strong, the burdens that are currently crushing your spirit are far too heavy for you, but they are entirely light for me. You have been carrying them for so long that your spiritual muscles are failing, your joy has been depleted, and your hope is hanging by a single frayed thread. But now that you hear my whisper, now that you have stepped into this quiet communion and felt the anchor secure your soul, you are finally ready for the next step. You are ready to stop carrying what you were never meant to hold. The time has come to physically and spiritually lay down the heavy burdens that have been weighing you down. You have walked miles through this desolate valley with that crushing weight strapped tightly to your back. Every time a new problem arises, you pick up another heavy stone and add it to your load. I see how your posture slumps under the sheer gravity of it all. I watch your knees tremble when the world carelessly demands just one more ounce of effort from a reserve that ran dry months ago. You mistakenly believe the tragic lie that being strong means you must carry the entire weight of your world on your own shoulders. But responsibility was never meant to equal emotional self-destruction. I did not breathe vibrant life into your lungs so you could spend your days suffocating under the pressure of sustaining your own universe. Come to me now. Bring the heavy, jagged stones you have been hoarding in the dark. Bring the massive boulders of fear that keep you awake in the silent midnight hours. I am inviting you into the ultimate act of surrender. Envision yourself standing before me right now, unclasping the heavy, worn straps that have cut so deeply into your skin for all these years. I know exactly what is hidden inside that massive pack you are carrying. I see the towering stack of unpaid bills that makes your chest tighten every time you open the mail. I see the relentless financial hardship that cruelly mocks your honest attempts to provide for your loved ones. I see the deep, painful fractures in your family relationships, the harsh conversations ending in agonizing silence, and your exhausting desire to heal wounds you did not create. I see the terrifying uncertainty of your future, the looming shadows of massive decisions you cannot make, and the frightening medical reports that leave you staring blankly at the wall. You wrap your tired arms around these problems as if they are fragile glass, entirely terrified that if you drop them, your life will permanently shatter into dust. I am gently asking you to take every single one of those specific agonizing fears and place them deliberately at my feet. Take the sharp anxiety over tomorrow's daily provision. Take the profound heartbreak of the cruel words spoken against you. Take the blinding lack of clarity regarding your next step. Place them all down one by one, releasing them onto the solid rock of my grace. I intimately understand the natural human fear of vulnerability that rushes in like a flood when I ask you to do this. Your logical mind immediately rebels against the concept of surrender. You ask yourself with a heart pounding and desperate panic, what will actually happen if you stop trying to fix it all? You wonder who will protect you if you drop your heavy shield, who will figure out the solution if you stop obsessively analyzing the problem, and what will happen if you stop swimming against the violent current. The enemy uses this exact moment of hesitation to whisper his darkest threats. He tells you that if you let go of your fierce, white-knuckled control, you will fall backward into a dark, endless abyss of total failure. He tells you that surrender is a passive giving up that will lead directly to your complete destruction. But I promise you, my deeply loved child, the exact opposite is the ultimate truth. When you finally find the immense courage to release your desperate grip and allow yourself to fall backward, you do not plummet into an empty, terrifying abyss. You fall directly, safely, and permanently into my infinitely capable waiting arms. This profound act of letting go is not a passive surrender to defeat. It is not waving a white flag to your cruel circumstances, nor is it allowing the violent storm to wash you away into the sea. It is an incredibly active, fiercely courageous choice to trust my divine character over the loud reality of your current environment. It requires immense spiritual bravery to look at a bank account that is empty, a relationship that seems irreparably broken, or a body that is failing, and deliberately hand the steering wheel of your life over to the unseen God. By doing this, you declare with your physical actions that I am absolutely who I say I am. You decide that my eternal love is far more reliable than your temporary human logic, and that my vast wisdom is far superior to your exhausted human strategy. This is the beautiful world-altering paradox of my kingdom. True power is never found in tightening your anxious grip, but in willingly opening your hands. By giving me the absolute right to govern the final outcome of your struggles, you unlock the iron prison doors that your own anxiety built around your heart. To fully step into this surrender, you must learn to pray right now, with a level of absolute raw, unfiltered honesty that might feel completely foreign to you. For far too long you have approached me with polished, carefully rehearsed words, thinking you needed to clean yourself up before entering my presence. You have tried to present a perfectly composed version of your faith, politely asking for my help, while carefully hiding the sheer magnitude of your desperation. I do not want your polished, empty religion. My child, I want your raw, bleeding, exhausted heart. Come to me exactly as you are, and pour out your immense pain without holding a single drop back. Tell me exactly how incredibly tired you are. Tell me that you are angry, deeply confused, and honestly feel like you cannot take another single step forward on this dark path. Let your hot tears fall freely, without a single word of apology. Speak your darkest doubts and your deepest, aching weariness directly into the safe sanctuary of my presence. I am not intimidated by your human frustration, and I am not offended by your tears. Your brutal honesty is the very mechanism of your total surrender. It is the necessary process of emptying your hands of the heavy stones you carry. As you bravely voice these deep, hidden fears and consciously release them over to me, I want you to pay close attention to what begins to happen within your physical body and your weary soul. As the words leave your lips, you will feel an immediate profound lightening of your entire spirit. It feels like a sudden life-giving rush of pure oxygen flooding into lungs that have been slowly suffocating under the crushing pressure of trying to control the universe. The rigid tension locked in your neck and the heavy knots buried in your shoulders will finally melt away as the massive weight of the world is miraculously lifted off your fragile frame. You are currently experiencing the beautiful, literal exchange that I promised you in my word. You are actively trading the heavy, unforgiving yoke of the world's demands for my yoke, which is profoundly gentle and completely easy. You are trading your crushing, impossible burden for my burden, which is brilliantly, wonderfully light. You are finally stepping out of the exhausting role of being your own savior. You are allowing me to be God and allowing yourself to simply be my deeply loved, perfectly protected child. This massive act of complete unhindered surrender marks the definitive monumental turning point of your long emotional journey. You have finally stopped fighting so desperately against the gentle grain of my grace. By emptying your bruised hands of the complex problems you were never created to solve, you have created the wide-open spaces in your heart that are absolutely necessary to receive what I am about to give you. The frantic, noisy, exhausted striving has entirely ceased, and a holy, beautiful, expectant hush has gracefully fallen over your spirit. You are standing at the very threshold of a profound shift. You are no longer begging me from a dark place of desperate panic, but you are now waiting from a bright place of totally surrendered trust. You have made room in the innermost chambers of your soul, completely sweeping away the toxic debris of your own anxiety and fear. And into this newly created, beautifully empty space, the first true miracle is finally preparing to enter your life. You do not hear a sudden clap of thunder, nor do you see the sky split open with blinding light. Instead, what gently descends upon you in this newly emptied space is something far more profound and far more powerful than any loud cinematic display of force. It is my unexplainable peace. This is the very first miracle I promised you. I watch closely as it settles over your exhausted mind, like a thick, comforting blanket on a freezing winter night. For the first time in what feels like an absolute eternity, the frantic buzzing noise in your head simply stops. You take a deep, hesitant breath, and to your own sheer amazement, the air does not catch in your throat. The heavy, invisible stone that has been pressing down on your chest for months has miraculously vanished. Your chest rises and falls smoothly, deeply, and naturally. You look around the quiet room, almost expecting the familiar panic to rush back in from the corners, anticipating the heavy dread to drop from the ceiling, just as it always has. But the room remains perfectly, beautifully still. I have stepped directly into the center of your weary heart, and I have spoken a single authoritative word to the violent winds of your anxiety silence. Your logical mind might try to analyze this sudden, breathtaking shift, desperately searching for a tangible reason why you suddenly feel so incredibly light. You look down at your phone, and the difficult, heartbreaking message from your loved one has not disappeared. You glance at the tall stack of papers on your kitchen counter, and the daunting financial reality of your situation remains exactly as it was an hour ago. The intimidating medical appointment is still marked in red on your calendar for next week, and the vast swirling uncertainties of your future still stretch out endlessly into the unknown horizon. Absolutely nothing in your physical environment has changed, yet everything inside of you has been completely radically transformed. This is exactly why my word tells you that this specific peace surpasses all human understanding. It makes absolutely no sense to the logical world. The world firmly believes that peace is merely the lucky byproduct of a perfect, trouble-free life. The world insists that you are only allowed to relax when every single bill is fully paid, every relationship is entirely flawless, and every health concern is permanently resolved. But my precious child, if your peace is entirely dependent on perfect earthly circumstances, then your peace will always be as fragile as a dry, brittle leaf in a hurricane. The profound miracle I am giving you right now is not the sudden absence of the storm. It is the undeniable, comforting presence of the Savior, sitting directly inside the boat with you. You are finally realizing that the massive, terrifying waves crashing violently against the wooden hull cannot sink you. This is not because your little boat is indestructible, or because you are a master sailor, but simply because the one who commands the depths of the ocean is resting right beside you. I see the exact beautiful moment this truth washes over your face. The tense, drawn lines around your tired eyes finally soften. A quiet, subtle smile touches your lips, even as the dark storm clouds continue to swirl furiously outside your window. You are experiencing the profound, supernatural steadying of a soul that has finally truly decided to let God be God. You are resting in the absolute, unshakable assurance that I am in complete control of the chaos. As you fully embrace this miraculous comfort, you will begin to notice that this peace acts as a towering, impenetrable fortress around your highly vulnerable mind. For months, the enemy has been relentlessly firing burning arrows of anxiety, deep depression, and terrifying hypothetical scenarios directly at your fragile heart. He has loved to attack you in the vulnerable hours of the night, waking you up at 3 in the morning with a racing pulse and a mind full of dread. But now those flaming arrows are hitting a solid, invisible wall. They strike the thick protective shield of my presence and fall completely harmlessly to the ground beneath your feet. When a terrifying thought attempts to creep back into your consciousness today, trying to convince you that tomorrow will bring total, irreparable ruin, you no longer spiral downward into a dark pit of despair. Instead, you feel a gentle, protective warmth stand guard over your thoughts. You are able to acknowledge the difficult reality of the problem standing in front of you, but you absolutely refuse to absorb the toxic fear attached to it. You are rapidly learning how to carefully separate the undeniable facts of your earthly struggle from the absolute truth of your heavenly security. The facts might say you are facing a massive, impossible mountain, but the truth says that I have already provided the grace you need to overcome it. This inner spiritual fortress is a deeply precious holy gift that the fractured world cannot give you. And more importantly, it is a magnificent gift the world can never take away. A sudden promotion at work cannot ever provide this level of deep soul-anchoring security. A massive, unexpected influx of money cannot purchase this kind of profound, abiding rest. Even the immediate temporary resolution of your current pressing conflict would not sustain this perfect quietness of the soul, because all human solutions are inherently temporary. What you are feeling right now, coursing through your veins and settling in your chest, is the eternal, unchanging weight of my love anchoring your fragile human spirit. I want you to sit quietly in this sacred, holy comfort and let it fully saturate every exhausted, aching fiber of your being. Allow the profound, life-altering realization to sink all the way to the bottom of your heart. You do not need your situation to be perfectly resolved in order to feel genuine joy. You do not have to wait until you cross the final distant finish line to experience the beautiful weeping relief of victory. You can experience it right here, right now, in the messy, unresolved, beautifully chaotic middle of your unfolding story. I watch as you slowly walk through the rooms of your home today with an entirely different, lighter posture. You pour your morning cup of coffee, and instead of staring blankly at the kitchen wall, mentally organizing your fears and dreading the hours ahead, you actually pause to taste the warm, comforting flavor of the drink. You look out the window at the soft morning light breaking through the branches of the trees, and you feel a genuine, sudden spark of gratitude ignite in your chest. You engage in simple, ordinary conversations with your family members, and instead of being entirely distracted by 1,000 worst-case scenarios playing on an endless, terrifying loop in your head, you are wonderfully, completely present. You listen to their voices, you look into their eyes, and you feel the love that surrounds you. Your physical circumstances are absolutely identical to yesterday, but you are not the same person. You have been entirely transformed from the inside out by the quiet power of my grace. This quiet joy, this miraculous ability to live and breathe and genuinely smile amidst the unresolved tension of your life, is the absolute greatest evidence that I am actively moving on your behalf. It is the undeniable living proof that my spirit is alive and working fiercely within you. This beautiful, unexplainable peace is the crucial, necessary foundation I had to lovingly lay before bringing the external changes you so deeply desire. If I had abruptly changed the physical world around you, while your fragile heart was still gripped tightly by frantic panic, you would have entirely missed the profound beauty of our intimate connection. You would have mistakenly attributed the rescue to your own exhaustive human efforts, or perhaps to sheer luck, and you would have remained a terrified slave to your anxiety the very next time a new problem arose. But because you have willingly received this incredible internal miracle first, your heart is now perfectly positioned. You have learned the most valuable lesson of all, that I am your ultimate, unfailing source of safety long before I ever part the threatening waters in front of you. You have discovered the magnificent secret of the kingdom, that true lasting contentment is found entirely in my presence, regardless of the violent weather raging outside. Now that this profound, unexplainable peace has firmly taken root in the deep soil of your heart, we must face the reality of the environment surrounding you. I have quieted the frantic winds within your mind, but as you look out the window, you can plainly see that the physical storm has not yet run out of rain. The external waves are still rising and falling, crashing heavily against the sides of your life. This is where your spiritual endurance is truly tested and forged. It is one thing to feel a sudden rush of peace in the quiet sanctuary of a morning prayer, but it is an entirely different victory to maintain that quietness when the harsh demands of the day begin to knock loudly on your front door. The enemy, who absolutely despises the sight of a soul resting comfortably in my arms, will immediately try to steal this newfound peace from you. He cannot tolerate your joy, especially when it is not tied to your circumstances. Because he cannot touch the solid anchor I have dropped into your spirit, he will attempt to attack your mind by pointing relentlessly at the problems that are still entirely visible in your daily life. He will stand right beside you, pointing a cynical finger at the lingering evidence of your struggle, trying to convince you that this peace is nothing but a temporary, fragile illusion. I hear the dark, discouraging words he whispers to you when you are standing in the kitchen or driving down the highway. He tells you that nothing has really changed at all. He sneers at your calmness, suggesting that your faith is foolish, completely naive, and dangerously out of touch with reality. He asks you how you can possibly dare to smile or take a deep breath when the bank account is still hovering dangerously close to zero, or when the medical symptoms have not yet disappeared, or when the silence between you and your loved one is still thick with unresolved pain. He wants you to believe that if the physical mountain has not moved, then I must not have heard you. He wants to drag you right back into the exhausting, frantic cycle of panic that you just escaped. But I am empowering you right now, my child, to look directly at the raging, swirling chaos of the storm and smile. I am giving you the supernatural strength to stand firmly on the deck of a rocking boat. Feel the cold spray of the water on your face and remain completely, totally unmoved. You can smile at the storm because you know with an absolute certainty that your soul is securely tethered to me. We are going to navigate the incredibly practical daily moments of choosing faith over fear together. This peace is not meant to be kept in a delicate glass case. It is meant to be worn like heavy armor into the messy reality of your week. I see the way you used to carry the weight of the mailbox keys, dreading the envelopes stacked inside. I know the exact pit in your stomach that used to form when an unfamiliar number flashed across your screen, bringing news of a sudden, frustrating setback. In the past, that specific trigger would have sent a hot spike of adrenaline straight through your chest. You would have immediately dropped into a frantic spiral of worst-case scenarios, your breathing turning shallow, your hands shaking as you desperately tried to figure out a survival strategy. But things are completely different now. When that new challenge arrives today, you will feel the familiar urge to panic, try to rise in your throat, but you will not give in to it. Instead, you will deliberately pause. You will close your eyes for just 1 second, take a slow, deep breath, and actively rely on the internal peace I have established inside of you. You will consciously decide to respond from a place of anchored rest rather than reacting from a place of exhausted terror. As you pause and take that breath, you will realize something absolutely magnificent. You will look down and see that the violent churning water is no longer threatening to swallow you whole. The storm is no longer sinking your spirit. You are miraculously walking right on top of the water. The massive waves of difficulty are still rolling beneath your feet, but they have completely lost their power to pull you under. You are defying the natural laws of your circumstances through the supernatural power of my presence. You will find a profound, surging strength in the realization that you can hold a painful reality in one hand and an overwhelming divine peace in the other without dropping either. You can acknowledge that the situation is incredibly difficult, while simultaneously knowing that you are completely safe. This is not denial, my child. This is the highest form of spiritual maturity. It is the brave refusal to let your temporary circumstances dictate your eternal identity. Every time you choose to remain calm when the world expects you to fall apart, you deal a massive, devastating blow to the enemy's plans. You prove that your trust in me is far stronger than the fiercest wind he can blow your way. You are entering a vital, defining phase of your spiritual growth right now. During this season of standing firm while the waves continue to crash, your faith is undergoing a profound metamorphosis. It is transitioning from a fragile, fluctuating emotional feeling into a rigid, unbreakable conviction. Feelings are notoriously unreliable. They soar into the clouds when the sun is shining and plummet into the dirt the moment it begins to rain. If your faith is based purely on how you feel or what you can physically see, it will always be unstable. But what I am forging in you right now is a conviction of steel. It is a deep, resonant knowing that does not flinch when the lights go out. You are learning the beautiful, sacred art of trusting me completely in the dark. Anyone can praise me when the harvest is overflowing, when the healing is immediate, and when the bank accounts are full. But to stand in the middle of a barren field, under a sky completely thick with dark clouds, and raise your hands in genuine peaceful worship, that is the mark of a heart that truly knows its Father. This transition is incredibly important because it prepares you to handle the profound weight of the miracle I am about to hand you. If your faith remains as fragile as glass, the blessing itself could easily crack it. But this new conviction will allow you to steward the forthcoming miracle with a deep, mature wisdom. By holding tightly to this peace while the storm still rages, you are proving something incredibly precious to me. And more importantly, you are proving it to yourself. You are proving that your deep, abiding love for me is based entirely on who I am, not merely on what I can do for you. You are no longer treating me like a transactional vendor, expecting a miracle simply because you inserted a prayer. You have fallen deeply in love with the anchor, rather than just the rescue ship. You are perfectly content to sit in the dark with me, knowing that my presence is the greatest reward you could ever receive. The waiting season is no longer tearing you apart. It is solidifying your eternal foundation. You are stepping out of the vulnerable, terrified state of spiritual infancy and growing into a seasoned, powerful warrior of faith. This level of unshakable endurance is the exact strength you need to sustain the breakthrough that is coming. You have successfully weathered the emotional terror of the storm, and you have chosen to let my peace rule your heart when everything else is shaking. Now that you have learned how to stand perfectly firm on top of these crashing waves without losing your breath, it is time to deliberately secure the ground beneath your feet permanently. We must ensure that this beautiful peace is not just a fleeting victory, but a lasting, eternal fortress. To build this lasting, eternal fortress, we must begin the deliberate, careful work of completely rebuilding your spiritual foundation. You cannot possibly sustain the magnitude of the miracle I am preparing for you if your life is built upon the shifting, unpredictable sands of human emotion. Emotions are fickle. My child, they rise with the morning sun and crash violently with the evening tide. Worldly expectations are equally unstable, constantly changing based on cultural trends, fluctuating financial markets, and the fleeting, unreliable opinions of other people. If you build your fragile house on that kind of sinking ground, the very next storm will bring it crashing down, leaving you shattered, heartbroken, and exhausted all over again. But now that your heart is securely guarded by my peace, the deep soil of your soul is finally ready. We are going to establish your weary feet firmly upon the solid, unyielding rock of my truth. This is not a rushed, frantic construction project. It requires your daily intentional participation to lay down every single stone of promise I have spoken over your life, creating a beautiful floor that will never crack under the immense weight of the blessing that is coming. To rebuild this solid foundation, I am calling you to immerse yourself deeply and consistently in my promises and the absolute truths found in my word. For far too long, you have allowed the loud, chaotic voices of the world to dictate your reality. You have listened to the discouraging statistics, the pessimistic predictions of experts, and the fearful, condemning whispers of your own insecurities. Those voices have planted deep, toxic lies in the rich soil of your mind. They have told you that you are permanently broken, that your future is entirely hopeless, and that your past mistakes have permanently disqualified you from experiencing a beautiful life. But I am gently taking your hand today and leading you into the quiet, healing sanctuary of my word. We are going to intentionally uproot every single one of those suffocating lies. When the enemy whispers that you have been abandoned, I want you to remember the truth that I will never leave you nor forsake you. When fear tries to convince you that you will not survive this dark valley, I want you to anchor your mind to the promise that I am walking right beside you through the shadow. As we begin replacing these dark lies with the brilliant, warming light of my truth, I am asking you to pay very close attention to the words that leave your lips. The vocabulary you use has a profound, unseen power to shape the atmosphere of your home and the spiritual alignment of your heart. Up until this point in the valley, you have spoken words of defeat, constantly verbalizing your sheer exhaustion, your heavy dread, and your absolute certainty that things will only get worse. You have rehearsed the agonizing details of your struggles so many times that the story of your pain has become the only song you know how to sing. But a person actively building their life on the rock of my truth must learn an entirely new language. I will teach you how to bravely speak life over your dead, broken situations. I am not asking you to pretend that problems do not exist, or to hide behind a fragile mask of toxic positivity. I am asking you to look directly at the towering obstacle and speak my absolute victory over it. When you wake up tomorrow morning, and the physical reality of the unpaid bills or the lingering illness is still staring you squarely in the face, you will no longer look down at the floor and say, "I cannot take another day of this pain." Instead, you will deliberately open your mouth and declare, "My God is supplying all of my needs according to His glorious riches." When the fracture in your family feels incredibly wide and the silence in the room is suffocating, you will not speak words of bitter finality. You will quietly whisper, "My Father is a God of miraculous restoration, and He is binding up the brokenhearted." This dramatic shift in your daily vocabulary is not a psychological trick. It is the vital, active alignment of your human spirit with the eternal reality of heaven. By transforming your words from fearful defeat into confident hope, you are actively laying down the heavy mortar that binds your new spiritual foundation together. You are deliberately training your mind to agree with what I am doing, rather than agreeing with what the enemy is desperately trying to destroy. This new language of life naturally gives birth to a beautiful daily habit of profound gratitude. In the past, you waited to say thank you until the violent storm had completely passed, and the physical evidence of the rescue was resting securely in your own two hands. That is exactly how the world operates, demanding tangible, visible proof before offering even a whisper of praise. But I am calling you to a much higher, much more powerful way of living. I want to show you how to cultivate a deep, joyful gratitude for what I am doing in the unseen realm long before it ever materializes in the physical world around you. This is the very definition of walking by faith and not by human sight. Imagine standing surrounded by unresolved pain and unanswered questions, and choosing to lift your hands in genuine tear-filled thanksgiving. You thank me for the provision that is already miraculously on its way. You praise me for the physical and emotional healing that is currently being masterfully orchestrated behind the scenes. This magnificent, courageous act of praising me in the dark creates a powerful atmosphere of joyful anticipation. It dramatically shifts the spiritual climate of your entire home. When you praise me before the physical manifestation of the miracle, you completely disarm the anxiety that has tried to hold your mind hostage for so long. Anxiety simply cannot survive in a heart that is continuously overflowing with authentic gratitude. The heavy dread that used to follow you heavily from room to room is entirely replaced by a bright, warm expectancy. You begin to live your ordinary days with a beautiful, childlike wonder, knowing with absolute certainty that your Father is working diligently in the background on your behalf. You align your spirit perfectly with the atmosphere of heaven, where my promises are already finished, sealed, and complete. This is a profound, beautiful shift in your daily emotional rhythm, moving permanently from a posture of fearful begging to a posture of peaceful, expectant receiving. As you continually anchor your mind on these heavenly truths, you will begin to notice something truly remarkable happening in the deepest, most quiet chambers of your heart. The desperate desires you held so tightly at the beginning of this valley, the specific ways you urgently demanded that I fix your problems, will slowly begin to change. When you were drowning in sheer panic, you only wanted immediate relief. You wanted the easiest, fastest way out of the suffocating pressure. But as you spend this sacred time immersed in my word, speaking life into dead spaces, and cultivating preemptive gratitude, your heart becomes intricately, beautifully knit together with mine. You will wake up one morning and realize that you are no longer just wanting my presence. You are deeply, genuinely craving my presence. The ultimate outcome you seek is no longer just a comfortable, easy life, but a life that perfectly, beautifully reflects my eternal glory. You will find yourself whispering in your quiet prayers with complete and total sincerity that you truly want my will to be done above your own. This incredible shift in your deepest desires is the absolute clearest sign of your newfound spiritual maturity. It is the magnificent living proof that your foundation has been successfully permanently rebuilt on the solid rock. You see, my beloved child, a massive physical breakthrough requires a massive spiritual capacity to properly carry it. If I were to pour a profound, life-changing blessing into a shallow, spiritually immature heart, that heart would quickly become entirely distracted by the shiny gift and completely forget the loving giver. But this crucial, quiet period of rebuilding your life on my truth ensures that you are entirely ready. It guarantees that when the doors finally swing wide open and the physical miracle floods into your daily life, you will have the wisdom, the grace, and the deep maturity to steward that blessing beautifully. You will not hold on to it with greedy, anxious hands, terrified of losing it, because your deep security is no longer wrapped up in what you possess. Your eyes will remain fixed entirely on me, the unshakable rock beneath your feet. You have done the incredibly hard, deeply beautiful work of tearing down the fragile walls of your own human understanding and allowing me to pour a concrete foundation of eternal truth. You have traded your frantic worrying for a disciplined daily immersion in my unbreakable promises. You have learned to boldly speak the language of heaven right in the middle of a brutal earthly storm, and your heart has been completely rewired to desire my holy presence above all else. I watch you now, and you are standing so much taller. You are breathing so much deeper. You are walking through the ordinary routines of your week with a quiet, undeniable authority that you have never possessed before. The foundation is secure, the heavy mortar is dry, and your weary spirit is beautifully, perfectly aligned with mine. And because of this profound inner work, before you ever see the final, tangible manifestation of the answer you have been praying for, I want you to recognize the profound miracle that has already taken place inside of you. I am gently holding a mirror up to your weary but beautifully changed soul today, my child. I want you to stop looking at the storm outside your window for just a few moments and look closely at the reflection staring back at you. Look at the quiet, resilient strength that has finally settled into the weary lines around your eyes. I want you to carefully remember those agonizing dark days at the very beginning of this difficult valley. Think back to the days when the crushing weight of your financial hardship, your family conflict, or the profound grief of your devastating loss felt so entirely insurmountable that you genuinely believed you would not survive until the sun went down. You used to collapse onto your bed at the end of the day, completely depleted of all human hope, absolutely certain that the relentless storm was going to permanently break you into pieces. You felt as though every single breath was a monumental struggle against an invisible, suffocating weight. But look at you now, my beloved child. You are still standing. You did not break. You did not crumble, and you were not destroyed by the wind. The very circumstances that the enemy cruelly intended to use for your absolute ruin have instead become the precise, magnificent instruments of your glorious refinement. This beautiful survival, this quiet, unyielding resilience, taking deep root in your chest, is not an accident or a stroke of luck. It is the spectacular, undeniable miracle of a changed heart. Consider the profound, awe-inspiring transformation that has taken place in the quiet, vulnerable hours of your night. Not so long ago, the encroaching darkness of your bedroom was a terrifying, exhausting battlefield. You would lie awake for hours, staring blankly at the ceiling, while your mind frantically raced through an endless, horrifying maze of worst-case scenarios. Your heart would pound a frantic, terrifying rhythm against your ribs as you desperately tried to figure out a way to save yourself and protect the people you love. The silence of the house only magnified the deafening roar of your own anxiety. But now I watch with immense joy as you lay your head upon your pillow and actually close your eyes in deep, restorative rest. You are sleeping soundly through the night, but not because the massive, intimidating problem looming over your life has been magically erased. The medical report might still be unresolved, the empty bank account might still be demanding your attention, and the future might still be completely obscured by fog. Yet you are finally able to truly rest. You are sleeping so peacefully because you have finally realized in the deepest, most secure core of your being that I am the one staying awake to hold your fragile life together. The ability to rest peacefully in the exact same environment that used to cause you crippling panic is a staggering, monumental miracle. It is the miraculous living evidence of my boundless grace, actively operating inside the architecture of your mind. You have beautifully transitioned from a fragile person completely crippled by fear into a quiet, unshakable warrior, resting deeply in faith. I want you to take a deliberate, intentional moment right now to truly celebrate this profound spiritual victory. Do not dismiss this massive internal shift as something insignificant, simply because the external physical breakthrough has not yet fully materialized before your eyes. The shallow world only celebrates loud, dramatic resolutions and instant gratification, but heaven continuously celebrates the quiet, magnificent triumph of a soul that has finally learned to completely trust its Creator in the absolute dark. You have walked bravely through the searing, purifying fire of this painful waiting season, and instead of burning you to useless ashes, the intense flames have only burned away the heavy layers of your self-reliance, your pride, and your profound anxiety. You have been beautifully refined by the fire, entirely stripped of the exhausting illusion that you must control the universe, and you are now wrapped securely and permanently in the impenetrable warmth of my grace. You're no longer the same terrified, exhausted person who first stepped trembling onto this difficult path. Your spirit has expanded, your capacity for trust has deepened, and your heart has become a holy sanctuary of my peace. Because this internal miracle is so incredibly vast and profound, it cannot possibly be contained solely within the private walls of your own heart. This beautiful, unexplainable peace is beginning to naturally overflow, gently spilling out, and positively affecting every single person who crosses your path. Think about your family and your closest friends, the ones who have watched you struggle so desperately under the agonizing weight of this heavy burden for so many long months. They are beginning to notice a very different, beautiful light shining from your eyes. They hear the subtle, undeniable shift in the tone of your voice when you speak about the uncertain days ahead. Instead of the sharp, brittle edge of panic that used to constantly lace your words, they now hear a deep, resonant, unwavering calm. When a sudden inconvenience or a minor crisis arises in the daily rhythm of your home, they instinctively brace themselves for your usual historical reaction of overwhelmed frustration and anger. But instead, they watch in absolute quiet amazement as you take a breath and respond with a steady, unexpected grace. Your newfound, deeply anchored peace has become a beautiful, calming shelter for your entire household. Without delivering a single lecture, you are demonstrating to the people you love most what it truly looks like to walk hand in hand with the living God. Even distant acquaintances and passing strangers are beginning to notice the spectacular, undeniable difference in your daily countenance. When you walk into a crowded room, you are no longer dragging the heavy, dark cloud of impending doom that used to announce your arrival. There is a gentle, quiet confidence radiating from your spirit that naturally draws hurting, anxious people toward you. They look at the incredibly difficult, painful circumstances you are currently facing, and they are completely baffled by your ability to smile genuinely, to offer authentic kindness, and to remain so remarkably steadfast under such immense pressure. You do not even have to preach a loud, theatrical sermon to testify to my goodness. Your very existence, breathing deeply and resting beautifully right in the middle of a raging, chaotic storm, has become a powerful living testimony to a broken, frantic world that is desperately searching for hope. Hurting people are quietly observing you, wondering exactly how you are surviving the impossible pressure with such supernatural grace. Your peaceful, loving response to adversity is silently, gently pointing their searching hearts directly back to me. You have become a magnificent, glowing vessel of my light in a dark season that the enemy intended to completely shroud you in absolute despair. Acknowledging and fully celebrating this profound internal miracle is absolutely vital for the next critical step of your journey. I need you to fully recognize the immense beauty of your own spiritual growth, because it permanently solidifies your unwavering trust in me. When the enemy tries to creep back in tomorrow morning and whisper the familiar toxic lie that I have ignored your desperate cries for help, you can point directly to the beautifully transformed landscape of your own mind. You can look at your own resting heart, your own quiet breathing, and your own steady hands, and say with absolute, unshakable conviction that your prayers are already being answered, starting masterfully from the inside out. I did not ignore you. I simply began the meticulous, loving work of rescuing your eternal soul before I began the temporary work of rearranging your earthly circumstances. You have successfully allowed me to rebuild your fragile life on the eternal rock of my truth, and you have proven that you can faithfully hold my peace, even when the world fully expects you to shatter. You are finally ready. My beloved child, the internal foundation is flawlessly complete. The quiet, glorious victory has been fully secured within your spirit. And now, if you just stand still and look very closely at the horizon, you will begin to notice something else entirely. If you just stand still and look very closely at the horizon, you will begin to notice a very delicate, undeniable change in the atmosphere. The heavy, stagnant air of the waiting room is finally beginning to stir. For so many long, grueling months, it felt as though your entire world had been placed on an agonizing pause, locked in a harsh, barren winter, where absolutely nothing seemed to grow. You had grown accustomed to the profound stillness of unanswered prayers and the frustrating silence that seemed to meet your every desperate effort. But now, my child, that long, exhausting season of waiting is finally drawing to its divinely appointed close. I want you to pay very close attention to the gentle, refreshing breeze that is beginning to brush against your face. It is not the violent, destructive gale of the storm you just survived. It is the subtle, undeniable shifting of the winds moving purposefully in your favor. Because you have faithfully allowed me to establish my unshakable peace deeply within the architecture of your soul, I am now actively moving the external pieces of your life into perfect, brilliant alignment. The foundation of your heart is now strong enough to carry the weight of the blessing. So the physical evidence of my movement is beginning to quietly surface. You will not immediately see the entire puzzle completely put together, but you will begin to notice the individual intricate pieces sliding effortlessly into their proper places. I want you to stay incredibly spiritually alert right now. You must keep your eyes wide open and your spirit highly sensitive to my guidance, because these initial shifts are often very small and easily missed by a heart that is not paying careful attention. They are the gentle, unexpected signs of my hand, diligently at work, behind the heavy curtain of your circumstances. When you walk closely with me, there is no such thing as a mere coincidence. Every small interaction, every slight change in direction, and every sudden shift in momentum is being masterfully orchestrated by the Creator who holds your specific destiny in His loving hands. One of the very first signs of this shifting wind often comes disguised as a sudden unexpected closed door. I know that in the past, a closed door would have immediately sent you spiraling into a dark pit of despair. You would have viewed it as another heartbreaking rejection, another painful failure, or another harsh reminder of your struggle. But with your new spiritually mature perspective, I want you to look closely at the door that just shut firmly in front of you. That specific plan falling through, that particular opportunity dissolving, or that sudden rejection was not a harsh punishment. It was my divine, loving protection. I forcefully closed that door because I saw the hidden traps, the unseen heartaches, and the exhausting dead ends that were waiting for you on the other side. I am purposely blocking the pathways that lead to mediocrity or disaster, so that you are gently, firmly redirected toward the exact path where your true miracle is waiting. When a door closes now, you do not need to bang your bruised fists against the wood in frustration. You can simply step back, take a peaceful breath, and thank me for shielding you from a mistake you did not even know you were about to make. As you allow me to redirect your steps, you will begin to experience the beautiful sudden arrival of unmerited favor. You will find yourself engaged in a completely random conversation with a coworker, a neighbor, or even a stranger you hardly know, and they will casually mention an opportunity, a solution, or a piece of vital information that perfectly aligns with the secret prayers you have been whispering in the dark. Someone will unexpectedly extend a grace period you did not ask for. A decision maker will suddenly look at your situation with inexplicable compassion and offer you a lifeline that makes absolutely no logical sense in the natural world. These beautiful, surprising moments are the concrete evidence of my divine providence actively breaking into your daily reality. I am softening the hearts of the people who hold the keys to your next season. I am causing your name to be mentioned in rooms you have not yet entered. And I am strategically placing the exact right individuals in your path at the exact right second to gently push you forward. You must remain incredibly sensitive to these gentle nudges, as these subtle shifts require your faith to take careful, deliberate steps forward. When the wind of my spirit begins to blow, you cannot remain entirely stagnant. I will provide the open door. I will orchestrate the divine connection, and I will align the resources. But you must be willing to faithfully lift your foot and walk through the threshold. You might feel a sudden quiet prompting in your spirit to make a phone call. You have been putting off to submit an application that feels far beyond your current qualifications, or to reach out to someone to mend a fractured bridge. Do not ignore those quiet, persistent nudges. They are not random, fleeting thoughts. They are the highly specific, incredibly loving instructions of your Father, guiding you step by step toward the manifestation of your breakthrough. Obey those gentle commands with a trusting, peaceful heart, knowing that I would never lead you out onto the water just to let you sink beneath the waves. I have been orchestrating these events for far longer than your human eyes can perceive. While you were weeping in the dark, wondering if anything would ever change, I was meticulously lining up the resources you would eventually need. While you were exhausted from the fierce battles of your daily life, I was carefully preparing the hearts of the people who are about to bless you. Everything is converging upon this specific moment. The timeline of heaven is perfectly intersecting with the timeline of your earthly life. The agonizing delay you just endured was simply the necessary time it took to bring all of these complex moving parts into absolute harmony. I am bringing the exact right people, the exact right provision, and the exact right timing together in a beautiful, undeniable symphony of grace. The massive, intimidating mountain that has been standing stubbornly in your way for so many months is finally beginning to tremble at its very foundation. As you watch these magnificent, undeniable signs of my movement unfold right in front of you, you will begin to experience a rising tide of hope filling the deepest chambers of your chest. But I want you to notice how distinctly different this hope feels compared to the frantic, desperate, wishful thinking of your past. In the early days of your struggle, your hope was fragile, entirely dependent on how you felt when you woke up in the morning. It was an exhausting emotional roller coaster, constantly swinging between sheer terror and desperate optimism. But the hope that is rising within you now is solid, heavy, and completely unshakable. It is not based on a desperate, wishful desire for escape. It is based on the concrete unfolding evidence of my divine providence. You are no longer merely hoping that I might show up. You are watching with a quiet, joyful awe as I actively walk into the room. Your heart will inevitably swell with a beautiful, pure excitement as the final pieces begin to seamlessly fall into place. You will feel the warm, familiar thrill of anticipation sparking in your spirit, the kind of pure, childlike joy that you have not experienced in a very long time. You will allow yourself to smile widely, to dream brightly again, and to look toward the horizon without a single ounce of heavy dread. Yet even in the midst of this rising, beautiful excitement, your spirit will remain perfectly, flawlessly anchored in the deep peace I have so carefully established within you. You will not become frantic with the impending blessing. You will not rush ahead of my perfect timing out of a sudden fear that the opportunity might entirely vanish. You will stand firmly in the warm, shifting winds, entirely grounded, beautifully balanced, and profoundly secure. You will know in the very marrow of your bones, and without a single lingering shadow of a doubt, that the physical miracle you have been tearfully praying for is finally standing right at your front door. When the heavy handle finally turns and that door swings wide open, the breathtaking reality of the moment will cause you to completely lose your breath. The long, exhausting, agonizing season of waiting is officially over. The physical breakthrough you have been tearfully praying for, the very thing you have spent countless hours begging me to provide, has finally arrived. You will stand there in the doorway, staring directly at the tangible, undeniable evidence of my faithfulness. And for a few beautiful suspended seconds, your human mind will struggle to comprehend the sheer magnitude of what is actually happening. The confirming emails will arrive in your inbox. The phone will finally ring with the exact news you needed to hear. The difficult conversation will suddenly soften into grace, or the impossible document will be placed securely into your trembling hands. I watch closely as your eyes widen in disbelief, and your heart skips a joyful, frantic beat. You have spent so many dark months bracing yourself for another heartbreaking disappointment, instinctively preparing your fragile spirit to absorb another heavy, devastating blow, that the sudden, blinding arrival of pure, unadulterated goodness will leave you absolutely speechless. The heavy, dark clouds that have hung stubbornly over your roof for an eternity finally break apart, and the brilliant, warming light of my specific provision pours directly into the center of your life. This is not a fleeting dream or a cruel trick of your imagination, my beloved child. This is the solid physical manifestation of the promise I made to you in the darkest, most terrifying depths of your long valley. I do not simply rescue my children with the bare minimum required for basic survival. I delight in completely overwhelming you with the extravagant nature of my goodness. When this specific miracle unfolds in front of you, you will immediately realize that it far exceeds your greatest, most optimistic human expectations. If you were praying for a financial provision to merely keep your head above the rising water, I am bringing a sudden, overflowing abundance that not only pays the towering stack of daunting debts, but firmly secures your future with a wide margin of profound rest. If you have been weeping silently over a fractured, seemingly irreparable relationship, the reconciliation will not just be a cold, polite truce to keep the temporary peace. It will be a deeply moving, tear-filled restoration that brings a level of vulnerability, understanding, and love you never thought was entirely possible. If you have been desperately waiting for physical or emotional healing, the restoration will wash over you with a profound, undeniable vitality that leaves earthly experts and physicians utterly baffled by your sudden strength. If you needed a specific door to open for your career or your calling, the opportunity that gracefully presents itself will be so perfectly tailored to your unique gifts and your deepest passions that you will know instantly, without a single doubt, that it was handcrafted specifically for you in the workshops of heaven. I love to do exceedingly abundantly, above all, that you could ever ask, think, or even imagine in your wildest dreams. And I am pouring that overwhelming abundance directly into your weary hands right now, as you stand firmly in the radiant, warming glow of this monumental breakthrough. The absolute breathtaking perfection of my divine timing will suddenly become crystal clear to your understanding. You will look down at the miraculous provision resting safely in your hands, and a profound, awe-inspiring realization will wash over your entire spirit. You will understand, without a single shadow of a lingering doubt, that if I had delivered this exact miracle to you even one day sooner, you simply would not have been ready to properly receive it. If I had opened this massive door 6 months ago, while your fragile heart was still deeply bound by frantic anxiety, and your weary mind was still enslaved to the exhausting illusion of control, the sheer weight of this massive blessing would have completely crushed your crumbling foundation. You would have immediately grabbed hold of this beautiful gift with terrified, white-knuckled fists, instantly consumed by the exhausting, paralyzing fear of losing it before the sun went down. But because I lovingly, intentionally held it back until the deep internal work of my unexplainable peace was completely finished within your soul, the timing of its arrival is absolutely flawless. You will look back at the agonizing delays, the frustrating roadblocks, and the silent, lonely weeks that used to cause you so much profound pain, and you will suddenly see them for what they truly were. My careful, deliberate, and fiercely loving acts of divine protection. I was ensuring that when the heavy blessing finally arrived, you could hold it up beautifully without being destroyed by the pressure of maintaining it. An overwhelming, incredibly powerful surge of profound gratitude and genuine awe will instantly rise from the deepest, most quiet chambers of your soul. You have cried a massive, deep ocean of tears throughout this grueling, difficult journey, but the tears that begin to fall freely from your eyes in this specific moment are entirely, beautifully different. These are not the heavy, bitter tears of sheer exhaustion, desperate fear, or crushing, isolating loneliness. These are the sweet, warm, healing tears of absolute relief and pure, uncontainable joy. I watch with immense overflowing love as your weary knees gently give way, sinking to the floor. Not because you are collapsing under the agonizing weight of the broken world, but because you are completely, beautifully undone by the sheer magnitude of my loving kindness. You will lift your empty hands toward the heavens, the very same hands that used to tightly clutch your desperate worries and your frantic survival plans, and you will offer me the most sincere, breathless, tear-soaked prayer of thanksgiving you have ever spoken in your entire life. In this holy, fiercely intimate space, the immense quiet distance between heaven and earth completely vanishes into thin air. You will feel my strong arms wrapped securely around your trembling shoulders, holding you close as you weep with the profound, life-altering knowledge that your Creator was actively working for your absolute ultimate good during every single agonizing second of your long waiting period. I never forgot you for a moment. I was meticulously building this exact, breathtaking moment just for you. Notice carefully how beautifully, profoundly different your spirit feels as you finally step forward to take firm hold of this long-awaited miracle. Because you bravely allowed me to establish my unshakable peace deeply in your heart, long before the external circumstances ever shifted, you do not reach for this breakthrough with greedy, anxious, or terrified hands. A person who has not been refined by the fierce fire of the dark valley will always idolize the blessing, clinging desperately to the temporary gift while entirely ignoring the eternal giver. They live their days in constant paralyzing terror that the unpredictable universe will suddenly snatch the good thing away while they are sleeping. But that is no longer who you are. You have been completely, radically transformed from the inside out. You reach out and receive this spectacular, life-altering miracle with a deep, grounded humility and a quiet, unshakable joy that radiates from your very core. You are perfectly able to fully, wonderfully enjoy the profound beauty of the restored relationship, the absolute security of the financial provision, or the immense breathing relief of the physical healing, without being enslaved for a single second by the fear of tomorrow. You know that the physical miracle resting in your hands is absolutely wonderful. But you also know with total certainty that the supernatural peace currently guarding your heart is vastly more valuable. You are stewarding this massive blessing with a mature, steady grace that can only be forged in the absolute dark, knowing confidently that the exact same God who faithfully provided the miracle possesses the limitless, eternal power to protect and sustain it. We are going to celebrate this monumental, hard-fought, beautiful victory together. My beloved child, I am rejoicing right alongside you, celebrating the magnificent resilience of your tested faith and the beautiful, trusting surrender of your exhausted heart. This is the glorious, deeply emotional climax of the long, arduous journey we have walked hand in hand through the deep, terrifying wilderness. Every single sleepless night, you endured every moment of overwhelming panic. You bravely fought through every tear-soaked prayer you whispered in the silence, and every quiet, incredibly difficult choice to trust me. When you could not clearly see, my hand has culminated in this exact, breathtaking triumph. You stood firmly your ground, while the violent, freezing waves crashed relentlessly against the sides of your fragile life. You bravely rebuilt your shattered foundation on the solid, eternal, unyielding rock of my truth. You learned the sacred art of hearing my gentle whisper in the absolute center of the deafening, chaotic storm. And now, after all the pain and all the waiting, you are standing in the bright, warm, healing sunlight of my faithful promise, holding the undeniable evidence of my profound love directly in your hands. Let this magnificent holy moment be permanently etched into the very core of your spirit, as a beautiful, towering monument to the absolute truth of my word. Let it be a permanent reminder that those who faithfully wait upon the Lord, who anchor their weary souls in my presence, and completely trust my perfect timing, will never, ever be put to shame. With the beautiful, undeniable weight of this answered prayer now resting securely in your palms, I want to gently place my hand on your shoulder and invite you to turn around. Look back with me at the long, shadowed valley you have just walked through. For so many exhausting months, you only saw that difficult landscape through the tear-filled, terrified eyes of a person desperately trying to survive. When you were standing in the very middle of that darkness, stumbling over the jagged rocks of financial hardship, relational brokenness, or physical pain, it felt completely endless. It felt like a harsh, barren wasteland where absolutely nothing good could ever possibly grow. But I am holding a mirror to your past today, so that you can finally see your entire journey through my eyes. From this new, elevated vantage point of victory, the landscape of your waiting season looks entirely different. You can now clearly see that those dark, terrifying days of anxiety and fear were not a barren desert at all. They were, in fact, the incredibly rich, deeply fertile soil where your immense, unshakable spiritual strength was painstakingly planted and cultivated. When you look back at the steepest, most agonizing climbs of your journey, you will no longer see moments of cruel punishment. You will see the exact divine locations where your spiritual endurance was masterfully forged. Think back to those specific terrifying nights when you were completely paralyzed by the fear of tomorrow, absolutely convinced that you had reached the very end of your human capacity. You thought your fragile faith was breaking, but it was actually expanding. The intense pressure of the waiting season forced your roots to dig deeper into the bedrock of my grace than they had ever gone before. If I had rushed your rescue, if I had simply handed you this magnificent breakthrough on the very first day you tearfully asked for it, your relief would have been instantaneous. But your faith would have remained incredibly shallow. You would have completely missed the breathtaking, profound intimacy of our relationship that could only be exclusively forged in the searing heat of the fire. We learned to walk together in the absolute dark, and that shared history is a priceless treasure that a quick, easy rescue could never have provided. Consider the sheer magnitude of the grace that sustained you when you had absolutely no physical evidence to hold on to. There is a profound, overwhelming gratitude that only comes from genuinely surviving a brutal, relentless storm. When life is perfectly easy and prayers are answered the exact moment they are spoken, it is far too easy for human beings to take, my goodness, for granted. You begin to casually rely on your own strength, believing that your own intellect and your own careful planning are the true architects of your safety. But when you have been stripped of every single earthly defense, when you have stood trembling in the freezing wind, with absolutely nothing left but the sheer promise of my word, your gratitude transforms into something fierce and indestructible. You now know exactly what it feels like to be completely rescued from the very edge of the abyss. This deep, resonant gratitude you are feeling right now is not just a temporary emotional high. It is a permanent, beautiful lens through which you will view the rest of your earthly life. As you carefully reflect on the long months of agonizing delay, you will begin to clearly see the hidden, masterful architecture of my protection. You will realize how the supernatural, unexplainable peace I gave you long before this physical breakthrough arrived acted as a divine, impenetrable barricade around your soul. The enemy launched a relentless, coordinated assault on your mind during the waiting season. He desperately wanted the prolonged uncertainty to completely shatter your mental and emotional stability. He wanted you to lose your mind to the crushing weight of the anxiety. But the peace I established within you acted as a powerful shock absorber. It took the violent, heavy impacts of your daily disappointments and neutralized their deadly force, protecting your fragile mind from completely breaking under the immense, suffocating pressure of the unknown. You can look back now and see the exact moments where you logically should have fallen entirely apart, but instead, you remained inexplicably, beautifully whole. That was my peace, standing as a vigilant guard at the door of your mind. Furthermore, that preemptive peace performed a spectacular miracle within the soft, vulnerable chambers of your heart. When human beings are forced to endure prolonged, agonizing pain without a clear resolution in sight, the natural earthly tendency is for the heart to slowly calcify. Disappointment breeds a dark, toxic cynicism. People who wait in the dark without my presence often emerge from the valley with hearts that have turned completely cold, hardened, and bitterly resentful toward a world that seems so incredibly unfair. But look closely at your own heart today, my beloved child. It is not hard. It is not bitter. It is not cold. The peace I wrapped around your spirit prevented the toxic arrows of resentment from penetrating your soul. You have emerged from the darkest, most difficult chapter of your life with a heart that is actually softer, more deeply compassionate, and vastly more capable of profound love than when you first entered the shadows. You survived the violent fire, and you do not even smell of the smoke. Because you have been so beautifully preserved and miraculously transformed, I am now calling you to lift this magnificent testimony high into the air. Your long journey through the valley is no longer just a private, painful memory. It has become a vital, blazing beacon of hope. There are so many other people right now who are hopelessly trapped in the exact same terrifying waiting seasons you just successfully escaped. They are sitting alone in their quiet living rooms, drowning in the identical, suffocating fear that used to hold you captive. They are staring at their own unpaid bills, weeping over their own fractured families, and terrified by their own impossible medical reports. They are desperately wondering if I have forgotten them, if the delay means they are entirely unloved, and if the violent storm is going to permanently destroy their lives. You are now uniquely, perfectly equipped to walk directly into their darkness and hand them the lantern of your own lived experience. I want you to boldly share the beautiful, authentic story of my faithfulness with this broken, exhausted world. You do not have to preach aggressively or use complicated, perfect religious language. You simply have to look another hurting person in the eyes and tell them the absolute truth about what I have done for you. Tell them about the terrible days when you felt completely paralyzed by fear, and how I met you right there on the floor of your despair. Tell them how I gently taught you to release your desperate illusion of control, how I dropped an unshakable anchor of peace into your soul, while the waves were still violently crashing, and how I faithfully, flawlessly delivered the physical miracle in my perfect appointed time. Your honest testimony will pierce directly through the thick, heavy fog of their depression. It will prove to them that the profound silence of God during the waiting season is not an abandonment, but a sacred, busy workshop where miracles are being meticulously prepared. When you share this story, you will realize the final, breathtaking truth about your healing. Looking back at the deep, jagged scars of your waiting season will no longer bring you a single ounce of pain or regret. The sharp, stinging sting of the trauma has been completely, permanently washed away by the overwhelming flood of my redemptive grace. The memories of your sleepless nights, your anxious tears, and your desperate prayers will no longer trigger a heavy ache in your chest. Instead, every single time you look back over your shoulder at the difficult terrain you miraculously survived, it will only bring forth a deep, resounding, joyful praise for the God who never, ever left your side. You will see that I was lovingly carrying you when you thought you were barely crawling, and that every single step of the grueling journey was absolutely necessary to bring you to this beautiful, triumphant moment. Your story is a magnificent living testament to the truth that my promises never fail, even when they seem entirely impossible to the human eye. You have successfully crossed the great, terrifying wilderness, and you are now standing securely on the firm, sunlit shores of your promised breakthrough. The painful, exhausting chapter of waiting is officially permanently closed, and a brilliant, beautiful new reality has begun to unfold right in front of you. But the profound, intimate lessons you learned in the dark valley are meant to walk closely with you into the vibrant days ahead. They have created an unbreakable, eternal foundation for our relationship. And as you stand here beautifully changed and completely victorious, it is time to look toward the future and finalize the beautiful permanent bond that will sustain you through every single season yet to come. We have reached the very end of this specific, deeply painful chapter of your earthly life, my child. The heavy, dark curtains of the waiting season have finally closed, and the brilliant morning sun is now warming your tired face. But the profound, unexplainable peace you have discovered in the absolute dark is not a temporary relief meant only for this passing moment. It is a magnificent, enduring fortress designed to last for all of eternity. In this final holy space of our journey together, I am giving you a powerful, loving invitation to step forward and walk in a lifelong covenant of unshakable trust with me. The miracle you are currently holding in your trembling hands is a beautiful, necessary gift for your present circumstances. But the deep, intimate bond we have forged in the fierce fire of your suffering is an everlasting triumph. I do not want you to simply take this blessing and walk away, reverting back to the exhausting, frantic rhythms of your old life. I am inviting you to permanently change the way you breathe, the way you walk, and the way you view the unpredictable world around you. You now know the ultimate magnificent secret to surviving any violent storm this broken world could ever possibly produce. Through the aching silent tears and the long agonizing nights of uncertainty, you have beautifully learned to seek my holy presence long before you ever seek my earthly presence. You understand now in the very deepest chambers of your soul that the absolute greatest rescue is not the sudden dramatic change of your physical circumstances, but the quiet, deeply rooted realization that the Creator of the universe is standing right beside you in the boat. Because you have faithfully learned to love the anchor vastly more than the rescue ship, you are finally permanently free from the frantic, exhausting pursuit of temporary security. You no longer have to chase the fleeting, fragile comforts of the world because you have tapped into the eternal living water that will never run dry. This secret is the absolute bedrock of your new life, a spiritual wealth that no thief can ever steal and no earthly disaster can ever destroy. I love you far too much to promise you a future entirely free from conflict because you still walk upon an imperfect fallen earth where the rain will inevitably continue to fall. New challenges will eventually arise on the distant horizon. Different unfamiliar winds will blow across your path, and unexpected seasons of transition will one day knock quietly on your front door. But I am giving you my solemn, unbreakable promise. Right now, you will never, ever have to face those future challenges with the blinding panic, the soul-crushing exhaustion, and the profound, isolating loneliness you once felt. The terrifying days of you desperately gasping for air in the middle of the night, entirely convinced that the world is permanently collapsing on top of you, are completely over. You are no longer a fragile victim of your constantly shifting circumstances. You are a deeply grounded, spiritually mature warrior who knows exactly how to stand firm when the ground begins to shake. You are completely, radically different now than the exhausted person who first stepped into this valley. You are now fully equipped with an unshakable faith and a supernatural quiet peace that will stand as a permanent, vigilant guard over your highly vulnerable heart. When the next storm clouds begin to gather on the horizon, you will not cower in terror or frantically try to build your own fragile human shelter. You will simply look up at the darkening sky, take a deep, steady breath of my grace, and step confidently into the impenetrable shelter of my wings. You have already survived the fiercest, most terrifying fire the enemy could throw at you, and you now know with absolute concrete certainty that the flames cannot consume your life when I am standing in the furnace right beside you. Your spiritual muscles have been flawlessly tested and proven, and your foundation is poured in the solid concrete of my eternal truth. I want you to live every single day of your beautiful unfolding future from this profound place of absolute rest. Let your tense, aching shoulders permanently drop. Let the heavy, defensive, anxious walls you spent years building around your heart gently fall completely to the ground. You do not have to fight aggressively for your own survival anymore, because the commander of heaven's armies is fighting fiercely and relentlessly on your behalf. Walk forward into your new season with a deep emotional sense of hope, anchored entirely in the concrete reality of my perfect, masterful timing. Whenever you feel a brief, fleeting shadow of doubt attempt to cross your mind in the days to come, simply look back at this exact, breathtaking moment and remember exactly how perfectly I delivered you. Let the memory of this physical miracle serve as a permanent glowing beacon of my faithfulness, completely illuminating the path ahead of you. We are going to seal this beautiful, monumental victory together right now in a quiet, sacred moment of deeply intimate communion. I want you to close your eyes. Take a slow, deep, life-giving breath of this new, peaceful air. and let your spirit speak directly back to mine. This is your divine appointed moment to entirely release the heavy chains of the past, fully embrace the miraculous, beautiful present, and completely dedicate your beautifully transformed life directly into my incredibly capable hands. Speak these words from the very bottom of your newly healed heart, knowing with absolute certainty that I am leaning in and listening to your voice with an overwhelming, joyful, and fiercely protective love. Let your weary but victorious soul pray these sincere words back to me. Heavenly Father, I come to you today with a heart that is completely overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of your goodness and grace. Thank you for never, ever giving up on me, even when I was entirely consumed by my own frantic fear and crippling doubt. Thank you for stepping directly into the darkest, most terrifying nights of my long journey and gently wrapping my trembling, exhausted spirit in a supernatural peace that I still cannot fully comprehend with my human mind. You miraculously quieted the raging, chaotic storm inside my mind long before you ever calmed the violent storm outside my physical window. I praise you for being my safe harbor, my impenetrable fortress, and my unyielding strength when my own human reserves were completely empty and broken. Thank you for this magnificent, breathtaking miracle that you have so faithfully and perfectly provided for me and my family. I stand in absolute awe of your flawless divine timing, realizing now that you were meticulously working for my ultimate good during every single agonizing second of my painful waiting period. Forgive me for the terrible moments I doubted your immense love, and forgive me for foolishly trying to carry the massive weight of the world on my own fragile, bruising shoulders. You have proven to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that your promises are entirely true, that your character is flawless, and that those who faithfully wait upon you will never, ever be put to shame in the end. I completely, unconditionally dedicate this newly transformed life into your strong, capable, and loving hands. I permanently lay down my exhausting need to control tomorrow, and I fully surrender my entire future to your divine, perfect will. I want to walk in this beautiful, lifelong covenant of trust with you every single day for the rest of my earthly life. Help me to continually seek your holy presence above all earthly presence, and use my lived testimony to bring a blazing light of genuine hope to others who are currently walking through their own dark, terrifying valleys. I am entirely yours, Lord, today, tomorrow, and for all of eternity. In your holy, mighty, and precious name, I pray. Amen. Hear me now, my beautifully restored and perfectly redeemed child. The heavy, suffocating burdens of your past are permanently gone. The long, terrifying spiritual night has finally passed, and your brilliant, warm morning has arrived in its full, radiant glory. Absolutely nothing in this fractured world or the unseen spiritual realm can ever separate you from my fierce, protective grasp. You have survived the valley, your foundation is forever secure, and your faith is now an unshakable fortress. Take a deep breath of this fresh, heavenly air, and let the absolute truth of my promise settle into the deepest part of your soul for all of eternity. You are safe, you are deeply loved, and you are entirely mine. Now go forward with your head held high and live abundantly in the beautiful, miraculous peace I have given you.